Hey everyone, I'm Ian McCarthy of Lifting for Life, and this is the second installment of my new Q&A series in which I answer your questions on video in under 5 minutes. Today's question is, what are your tips for people with voracious appetites that have a hard time cutting weight? Interestingly, I think we can break this question into primarily physiological considerations and primarily psychological considerations or recommendations, and I will address them in that order. So first of all, I think there can be tremendous value in trying to maximize the satiating effect of your diet relative to its energy content. So perhaps ironically, this is going to mean that you want your diet or the foods you eat to be clean probably the overwhelming majority of the time. You're going to want to favor lean protein sources, high carb, high volume, low energy density carb sources, fruit, and veggies. Absolutely, you can eat quote-quote junk and lose weight. That comes at the expense of satiety and additionally, in a lot of cases, cravings, but that kind of gets into another discussion. Second, I encourage you to experiment with your actual macronutrient targets if you track macros, so as to find that which, once again, yields the greatest satiety relative to the total amount of energy you eat. To briefly illustrate this, I've met folks who really don't feel a difference between, say, 80 grams of fat ingested per day and 40, whereas carbs strongly correlate with satiety. They eat more carbs, they feel less hunger, they feel more full. That kind of person should favor more carbs, less fat, because again, they're going to get more satiety relative to the total energy they eat. Whereas there are folks who, provided they get a moderate to high quantity of protein each day and a moderate to high quantity of fat, they're good to go. And interestingly, the more carbs they eat, the more hungry they are, the more carbs they want to eat. That person would want to favor a low carb, medium to high protein, medium to high fat approach. Folks are going to land all over the spectrum. Once again, I encourage you to experiment. If you're going to make a change, probably make a change for at least a week, see what happens, and then adjust, go from there. Third, experiment with nutrient distribution throughout the day. Two approaches that I found work really, really well for folks who, not even folks who necessarily just have huge appetites, but who are cutting, they need to keep their energy intake at a certain level below that which they desire to eat. One is carb backloading, although it really ends up being carb and fat backloading, meaning throughout the day, you ingest your protein, probably evenly distributed or roughly evenly distributed, but you really pull back on carbs and fat throughout most of the day because you're going to be more alert, more awake, busier, more energetic. In other words, you're ultimately going to have more willpower. It will be easier to hold back on those carbs and fat. Then later in the day, primarily at your last meal, you eat a greater quantity of carbs, greater quantity of fat. When you're more tired, it's going to be harder to not binge, etc. You have a big meal, and then you're able to sleep. You feel awesome. Some people can't do that, and they feel a lot better if they have a larger breakfast, large amount of protein. Again, protein, you probably want it evenly distributed. I'm getting kind of off topic. Large amount of carbs, large amount of fat at breakfast, a very satiating, filling breakfast, and that carries them throughout the day. They don't really want to snack as much, etc. And then maybe they don't even eat that much later in the day, meaning at that last meal. So again, experiment with that. Probably make changes no more often than on a weekly basis. Finally, cardio. Folks land all over the spectrum with cardio. Some people do cardio and their appetite goes down. For some people, it makes no significant difference. For some people, it increases. In some cases, it increases wildly disproportionately relative to the energy that they use while doing cardio. If you're someone who does cardio and your hunger stays about the same or even declines, cardio could be, in fact, it's probably too weak a claim, cardio is probably a really useful tool for you as a means of increasing your energy expenditure while your energy intake stays the same or even goes down. The net effect is that your energy balance goes down, which is what you want. This gives me about 25 seconds to talk about the psychological component. I encourage you to seek out work, whatever that is, which keeps you mentally engaged but is not unduly stress-inducing, because if it is, that stress, that undue or excessive stress, might make you overeat as a means of trying to, well, first of all, it might actually increase your hunger, increase cravings, even if it doesn't do that, it might cause you to want to overeat as a means of simply feeling better. But at the same time, you don't want big blocks of dead time and energy with which you can then go and overeat. In fact, if you're in a situation where you are physically hungry, but you're sufficiently busy, that makes it easier to hold back on eating food which you don't need or which isn't conducive to you achieving your goals. So we're over time, but I felt that it was justified. I accept my own apology. Thank you so much for the time I perhaps wasted, but that is the second installment of my Q&A series. The next video will be really chopped down. We'll make it 2 minutes. Thank you so much for your time. I hope that you found this answer valuable. And if you enjoyed the video, please like it, share it. Feel free to leave a comment below, whether to do with this video or a question for a future video. And I think that is it. So thank you so much. We'll talk next time.